Joining us today on our show is Mr. Eric Rasch, who will speak to us about volunteerism and his service and his experience serving the public. And since the April is the National Volunteer Month, we would like to dedicate to honor all volunteers in our community, as well as encouraging like Mr. Eric. Before I delve into the questions and answers, I would like Mr. Eric to introduce himself. For some of us, he's known and has been serving the community, and before at a young age, as I presume, about 20 years of experience serving the public, private, and non-profit sectors. Mr. Eric, would you mind to tell us about yourself to begin our discussion? And answers. I would like
Sure, but first I want to thank you for the good work that you're doing, Essayias, and also Kidist. Thank you as well for all of the work you're doing in the community and to get the word out about volunteerism in this important month. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Eric Rasch. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri in the Midwest. And at that time is where I pretty much started my work with the community. And I did start at a young age. At this point in time, I'm now the operations manager of one of the largest event venues in the Washington Metropolitan Region called the Silver Spring Civic Building at Veterans Plaza, where hundreds and thousands of folks gather throughout the year to celebrate cultural events and volunteer and work together as organizations to better, the region that we live in and the world that we live in.
Let me start, since this month is also a National Volunteer Month. I would like to define for us, what is volunteerism and why do people volunteer? In line with that also, why are you interested in volunteering?
Okay, yeah, those are great questions. To first start out with what is volunteerism, that can be anything that you think, whether it's large or small. Volunteering can be something as simple as reading a book to a child. That is, something that everybody can do. People in need do need that. Sometimes there's kids that need help at all different levels. You can do volunteerism on major scales as well, whether that's a community food drive or a fundraiser for a particular organization. So volunteering can be big, it can be small. I would define volunteerism as an impact on others that's going to make the community better.
Is there any specific skills that I should acquire in order to become a volunteer, or anybody can be a volunteer?
Anybody can be a volunteer, and we all have skills. So I think the thing that a lot of people don't realize is the power that they have to volunteer. And so, I'll give you a quick little story about how I volunteered in a particular role and how it made a big impact on others. I'm friends with one of the executive directors of a national adoption agency. And I met her in this leadership program that I did nearly 10 years ago when I first moved to the Washington region. And in that program, it was a leadership development program, but we also would have team events where sometimes they would need someone to create something visually as a team. And whenever that happened, I was one of the first to volunteer and raise my hand saying, I'll do the visual stuff because I'm kind of an artist as well. Well, she decided after that program, how can we take those skills and use them in the things that we need? And they have a National Adoption Day program where what they would do is they would bring potential adopted parents that want to adopt or caregivers that want to adopt with children that want to be adopted that are looking for a home. And she said that I was a professional caricature artist, okay, to the kids. And this is very interesting because when you're a volunteer, you have to go in knowing that whatever you do, whether you think it's going to be big or small, you're going in there with your heart that you just want to help. And so I thought I was going to be volunteering with a bunch of young children. I'm thinking under 6 years old. The first kid that came in was 13 years old. and he asked me to draw a picture of him catching a touchdown pass over his shoulders with a Dallas Cowboys jersey on, and the crowd going wild with a particular number and all that type of stuff, and his name. So I was a little intimidated, but I did it, and I realized what a smile it brought to his face, and I was hooked ever since. And so every year she would ask me to come back and volunteer as a caricature artist, and I did. I probably drew, a couple hundred pictures over the number of years that I went, and I saw a lot of kids. I saw the connection, and the only thing I would say that there was a difficult part of the volunteering was that I would sometimes see the same kids year after year. So I was going, the second year I volunteered, and the third year I was thinking, I'm going to see a bunch of brand new kids. And sometimes I saw the same children and they had not been adopted. And so that was kind of heartbreaking. But what it did is it built a relationship. The kids remembered me. They had the pictures. They would hang them on their walls. And it made a big difference in their lives. They said that they would hold on to those tight, because one of the things that they also did with the pictures is they would kind of share a little bit about their dreams. And they would always say, this is what I want. And you could see that they were thinking ahead of the future of what they could be. And, the football was one thing, but people would say they wanted to be a baker, or they wanted to be a bus driver, or they wanted to be a farmer, or whatever it was. They had a lot of different dreams, and you could see it on the paper. And so, getting into volunteering and not necessarily knowing what you're going to do, but just saying yes is an important thing. Anybody has a skill, whether you think so or you don't. Just go in there with your whole heart.
I saw your volunteerism, especially with Ethiopian. What's your relationship with Ethiopian? Because I remember last year was a great job with Ethiopian Run for Love.
Okay, yeah. Well, in the background here, you're going to see my wife, Merchai. If you see her, beautiful wife, Merchai. Yes.
Yes.
Is my son, Adam. And so, even before I was married and had a son, when I moved here to Silver Spring, I realized that Silver Spring, Maryland is really, I think a second Ethiopia in a way. And so I got to know the community very well. And one of the things is, Ethiopian people have a very big heart. And I think what they do is they also see when other people want to help contribute in the same way, there's a good network here. And so the idea is, how are we going to work together to help people in need? And so, when some of my friends would ask, hey, we're going to have a fundraiser. It's the first year we're doing it. Can you help? I'm all in and I want to help. And
network ችግር ያለ ይመስለኛል። እሱ ይሰማሃል ወይስ እኔ?
Yes, yeah, I can hear him. Yeah, I can hear him.
Yeah. So that's I mean,
okay, go ahead.
Okay. The connection with the Ethiopian community really is simply they've been a wonderful addition to the DMV region, and I want to only help in the efforts. They in every imaginable space in the region, there's an Ethiopian, whether they're a doctor, whether they're a business person, whether they're a chef or a cook. There's a lot of different things that I think the Ethiopian community is really holding a lot of the region together, and so I just want to help in that effort.
That's great. Specifically, I have to mention that your wife Merchai is the daughter of our beloved, one of the greatest journalists in Ethiopia, Helena Tefera, and she's our friends, everything. I mean, and we're glad that you're part of us. Now you're part of the family. So
thank you.
It's not only, Merchai, and also your participation. And then, of course, you're lucky to have Merchai as well.
Well,
and
it
was great.
Say one thing too about Merchai. One of the nicest compliments that any parent I think could ever get is for their children to want to emulate them and be like them and follow in their footsteps. And it's a tribute. Marchai followed her mother in journalism, and she now works for Montgomery County Council, and she's their communications liaison, and really is working around the clock to try to help get the word out about right now COVID-19 and all the different things that surround that. But she's working and she's translating things in Amharic and French, and she's just doing well, and I think that's a tribute to her mother as well.
Yes. Yeah, speaking of the volunteerism, one of the problem is many of us think that there is no enough time, to participate or to volunteer.
Yeah.
How would you manage to get those extra time? Or is it an excuse for those of us who doesn't volunteer and say it? I mean, I will give you,
Yeah, I think that it's not an excuse. You can't say, I don't have time. But at the same time, too, I certainly understand when people say I don't have time, and it's because we're sometimes trapped in our own heads, as in schedules, and so a lot of times what happens is someone else is telling you what your schedule is going to be, and so that could be work, it could be family, it could be friends, it could be other commitments. But I think you have to carve out time for what you want to do, how you want to contribute. And so I'll tell you, for me, I had been given an opportunity several years ago to go to Sierra Leone, Africa, and on a medical mission trip. And at the time, I said yes, but while we were preparing for that trip, the Ebola breakout happened. And thus, I could not go to Sierra Leone because of Ebola, and no one could go enter the country. It was, one of the deadliest diseases that we've known on Earth. And but what happened was, after that, I never lost hope that I wanted to join this medical mission. And so a few years later, after that crisis, I had another opportunity to go. And of course, there were a lot of things going on that I could have said, no, it's not the right time. I don't have time, all of that. But I got the blessing of my wife. I asked her, is it okay to go to Africa to volunteer in this capacity? And she said yes. And I went for, a week and a half and learned a great deal about this medical mission trip, which I was with some wonderful people. Shout out to Josephine Garnham, who also works with the county, but she was wearing a different hat at the time, and she was the coordinator of this effort. And they had doctors from around the world, United Kingdom, China, of course, a lot of doctors from the United States, but they all offered free medical service and surgeries to folks in Sierra Leone. And I was right there learning about it and helping again. And I didn't know how I was going to help. So to get to that other point, you don't know necessarily your skills. I wasn't a doctor, I wasn't a nurse, and I wasn't a surgeon. Everybody else on the trip was, but I realized I could actually help with cultural competency when there were folks from around the world that didn't necessarily ever work with African people. And so when things didn't necessarily go the right way, I was there to kind of bridge that gap and share some of my insight as in how to collaborate and work better so that we could actually move the ball forward and get as many surgeries as we could and medical examinations as we could.
How to help people during this time as a volunteer?
That's a great question, Kidist. There's a lot of different resources and opportunities that people can do. And again, when you're thinking about things that folks can do, that one thing comes to mind, and that's this organization it's Montgomery County Volunteer Center. Mm-hmm. And the Volunteer Center is one of those places where people can go, and it's all the resources for folks that want to volunteer. Okay. So it's really a one-stop shop. And if I can, if it's appropriate right now, I can share my screen and I will show you the website just so our viewers can see some of the opportunities that are out there for folks. Is that okay?
Yeah, you can go ahead. And most of the
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I share screen real quick, and I think well,
ኤሪክ እስከሚዘጋጅ ድረስ ለምን አንዳንድ ነገር አንልም?
I think you may not be able to do it, but
okay.
you can email me, or you can email.
Well, I'll tell you about some of the program. Okay. So one is sewing face masks for folks. So they're in need of a lot of tailors, or even if you're not a tailor but you do know how to sew, they're looking for folks to be able to sew cloth face masks, face coverings for people. And just today in Silver Spring, they started their pilot program, which is to give the public face masks, and they started it at the Silver Spring Transit Center. So we want to see how that goes as a county to be able to give folks, face masks. That is one of the things. Another one is something that we all can do, but you have to have a little courage, and that's to go grocery shopping for seniors. Okay, there's a lot of older people that are very vulnerable to the coronavirus. If you think about them getting the coronavirus, it could be deadly. And, that's the last thing we want to do, is put people that are high risk to actually contract the coronavirus. So if you want to grocery shop for a senior, you can do that by going to this website as well at the Montgomery County Volunteer Center. There's other things that you could do too. You could have a virtual hangout session for adults with disabilities. So just think about right now, like right now, this is almost a hangout session. We're talking and people are watching. The idea would be for you to be able to create a hangout for people, adults with disabilities. And if you have a specialization in that, and of course they have a vetting process so that you'll find out if you're suited for that, but you could also entertain adults with disabilities that way as well. There's other opportunities, such as you could prepare 5,000 food sacks for kids per week. So they need volunteers if you want to actually prepare food for children. That's a weekly opportunity. People need to do that. And the last one I'll tell you about, the last two, bilingual enrollment assistance. So if you do have skills with language, that is fantastic. We need more people with language skills to be able to volunteer. So that's bilingual enrollment assistant. And you could also, another opportunity is to support refugees and immigrants during this crisis. And so if you think about it, if you or your family was a new American at one time recently, you know the struggle and you know how hard it is to get acclimated to a new country. Wouldn't it be great to have somebody by your side that's going to be able to help you navigate the system, introduce you to people, and really hold your hand to make you feel welcome and comfortable in this new country?
Well, that's a great, information that you have given us. And with regard to the unemployment, there are so many, community members are out of work. Is there any assistance around in Silver Spring area where they can go and fill out their application or unemployment insurance, that kind of stuff?
Yeah, especially if they doesn't have any paper. I mean, social security, or if they doesn't have any W-2.
Any documentation, so to speak.
Yes, that's a wonderful question. And it is one of those where we actually hear that question quite often. The thing that you want to remember is Montgomery County is open for everybody. Okay. When I say everybody, that means everybody, whether you have documents or you don't. Okay. And so when we're thinking about how we're going to be open to people, what that means is you have to participate in the system. And I think the hardest part for folks without documents is they believe that if they give their information, that it's going to hurt them in some way. And so you have to be able to give information to receive benefits. And in Montgomery County, we take that extremely seriously. We protect all of your information. We do not share that with anybody, okay? And what we're trying to do is we want to make sure that we're getting the resources to the people that we need. And so what I would encourage everybody to do is go to the Montgomery County, Maryland website, okay? So it's Montgomery County government website. And at that point, you're going to see a lot of different options for services. You will have to participate and give some information, but that's the only way we can give information, okay? And give support. But just know that we are not going to do anything with that information that's inappropriate. We're only using it as a way to track what we're giving out and handing to folks. And here's another really important part that's really critical. Montgomery County at this stage is focused as a laser on equity and making sure that we're helping everybody across the spectrum. And what that equity piece means is folks that need it, we know they need it, and we're going to do whatever we can to get that service to them, to get the support to them. So partnerships with you right now, talking on this program, is one of those channels to doing that, because you are well and trusted in the community. And if you are able to tell your listeners, guys, please make sure your families work with Montgomery County for the services you need, even if you're undocumented, it's okay. And you know, I'm not going to lead you astray. That's how we're digging down into making sure that we're connecting with communities, because it's hard for me to say it, not being necessarily Ethiopian or African, to say that to an Ethiopian or an African. There still could be a little bit of level of trust that I'm not sure. But, you know, for me to have a relationship with you guys and to be able to talk with you, and you're a trusted source, that's how we're really trying to communicate with people about how we're going to provide services. And you got my word that we're going to take this extremely serious, and your data and your information will not be used inappropriately.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Eric. By the way, could you tell us about volunteerism in the time off?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Volunteerism in time off.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So when you're not working, or is that the question? Okay. Well,
yes.
You know, right now, it's a very sad place for many people, because a lot of people have just lost their job, okay, or they've been told to stay home, and they may not have income. So it can be a really, really difficult time for people when they're off, quote unquote, of work, or they are at home. But I would just encourage folks to try to, you know, really work on finding something that's going to keep you going through this crisis. And so if you can, you know, learn a new skill at this time, now is a great time to do it. You have time off. You are not necessarily doing anything. I would say build a skill at this point so that after the crisis, you can really hit the ground running. Something, for example, is a language skill. So let's just say we're talking with our Amharic speaking community, and you know, they're used to doing something, but they don't have a lot of time to do the work anymore because business isn't taking place. Don't just sit at home and watch television shows or YouTube or any of these things just to pass the time. Now is the time to try to build the skills to take you to the next level. So that could be language skills, for example. If you're not comfortable necessarily speaking English at this time, work on that. A great app is Duolingo. If you guys have heard of that app, there's a lot of apps out there. The library has a lot of programs that are already, all you have to have is a library card in Montgomery County, and you can access a whole network of Amharic programs that help teach you English, or Amharic programs that are still in Amharic. So there's a whole division of Amharic programming. So I would just say simply take this opportunity to learn a new skill. And if you already know Amharic, you already know English, and you say, I want to be, an IT professional, now is a great time to start, going online and watching tutorials and learning all the things you need to do to get that credentials. So after this pandemic, or even during the pandemic, when some of these skills are so desperately needed, you can get a job. You can help the cause by, being able to protect the network, or to be able to help with all the cloud computing. Think of all the new jobs that are out there with Zoom and, Teams and all the different ways that we network. Everything has to still take place in the cloud, and they need help in that way. So there's a lot of opportunities, endless opportunities, but now's the time to really try to build your skills and not just have idle time where you're sitting at home.
It was a great information that you've given us. Do you have any questions? And
is there any, websites to have for the volunteer free classes or trainings, courses?
Yeah, again, I'll say this: the one that is most important for all of our folks, it's called it's www.montgomerycountymd.gov/volunteer center. Okay, and I would love to show my my screen, but I can't. But I would say that is going to be the #1 place to go. And you look at it, it's very easy to read. In fact, here's some really interesting things. It says find a volunteer opportunity, and they have a search. So you could actually punch in your search what you want to do, and then you could put your zip code, and you could put the distance, how far you're willing to travel. So what they're trying to do is really dig down and make sure that you have local opportunities very close to your home that you could participate in. And it's a wonderful, wonderful place to go. And
most of those informations are for the Montgomery dwellers, the Montgomery residents, isn't it? Okay. So
no,
the other counties also have the similar kind of, activities and volunteers requests and so forth. So the one you're telling us is in particular is Montgomery County, isn't it?
It is in particular Montgomery County. However, we in Montgomery County we don't see borders.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is this is a regional approach. Whether you're in Prince George's County, DC, Howard County, Virginia, Northern Virginia, it does not matter. We want to make sure that everybody has opportunities to serve. And we realize that the messaging, whatever we're doing here, it travels because we're a big community. And if you think about
I'm glad to hear that. There is no border.
There's no borders.
There are no borders. And I'm glad that I'm part of the Montgomery County, and I'm blessed, especially when Eric is explaining about Montgomery County benefits. And
even if Mr. Eric is here today, I'm from Virginia too.
Yeah.
But there is no any border.
Virginia's for lovers, right?
Yes. Yep. Yes. Let me ask you, this is a personal question, which is probably the end of our questions. After I looked at your experience, you started your working for nonprofit community centers and with a soup kitchen and oversee the facility at a young age. And then now here you are from Kansas to Montgomery County.
Yeah.
Do you have any plan? To run as an executive for Montgomery County? Because the way you describe things and the way you are carrying yourself into the public service in the local communities, do you have any plan to run as a politician, as an office holder?
I'll tell you what, that's a great question. But what I really think is this: there's ways that you can help at every level. And so, when I was running a facility at a young age and a soup kitchen in the back, those are very, very fond memories. But I tell you, the network and the relationships that you build with the community at that level, it sticks with you for a lifetime. And so I do think there is a point where you can continue to build on your capacity to do more. And so, at this point in my career and my life, I'm extremely happy to be able to serve in the role that I am, but also have the opportunity to try to expand that by, working in more ways with the community. And so I don't see myself necessarily running for anything in the near future, but you never want to put anything, off the table for your life. But, it's one of those things right now. I think the community is coming to me and saying, hey, how can we connect? How can we help? And, in my role, I've been able to do that. And I've been, blessed to be able to serve in this position. And so we have, the one thing I can say in Montgomery County, and when I first moved here was Tacoma Park, there are so many great leaders in this region. The only way I would ever see myself really needing to step in is if I saw that there was a gap in something. But I think that's already being, we have so many great leaders, so many great advocates. I don't see there being a need at this point. So it's one of those things where you never know how it's going to be in the future. But if you feel that your values are threatened, that would be a good time to step in and say, hey, hold on, we need to make sure our values are at the table. We're at the table, the community's at the table, and I'm here to help as an advocate. But, there's no need right now because we have so many great leaders and they're giving me the opportunity to serve in this way. And so, I hope that helped answer a question.
Yes, partly, and I can see it though. I really appreciate for your time, and on behalf of our community and our radio station and this program, also I thank you for being with us. If you have any last word that you can advise us in terms of this COVID-19 crisis, you're welcome. And I really thank you for being with us.
And I hope we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you both for, allowing me to be a guest on your show tonight. What a wonderful, feeling to be able to share some of my thoughts with you. But at the same time, too, I want to thank you both for all the work that you're doing in the community. Whenever I hear about the work you're doing, people say with the utmost respect and admiration. And so I just want to make sure to thank you as well from me and my family. Regarding COVID-19, I would encourage the community at this point to continue to be vigilant in all of the social distancing practices, covering your face, washing your hands. This is not the time to relax or let your guard down. And I think that at this point, it's really hard to sometimes remain vigilant because sometimes folks on the national stage are telling you, hey, it's not that bad. We're getting over it. Things are going to get normal again. And most people have cabin fever. They've been inside too long. They miss being around people. They want, we're all human. And so having that human feeling of wanting to be with people, next to people, all of that, that's what we have to kind of fight. And, I had a meeting earlier today with our county executive, our chief administrative officer, our Dr. Gales, who's the head of our health, and our emergency management, another Dr. Stoddard. And I will say this, the cases continue to go up. Mm-hmm. There's been a few days where the cases started to go down, but then they shot back up. And so no one's at all out of the woods. We're not clear. There are a lot of people in Maryland, in Montgomery County, that have actually died from COVID, which we have to take a moment of silence and remember them because it's heartbreaking. If you think about it, you lost a loved one to COVID. And, for me, I've actually had friends that have had COVID, and I know someone that's passed from COVID. And so, we really have to remain vigilant. Don't take your eyes off the fact that you want to protect your family, yourself, your loved ones. And so continue to be vigilant and do all the things you can to protect yourself.
Again, thank you for being with us, and please convey our greetings to Mircea and to your son Adam. And again, I thank you. Thanks.
And if you have a minute, just write the information on the comment. That's gonna be good. I think people, they can reach that.
Oh, I will. Thank you. That's what I'll do. I'll add it in the comments, the link to the Montgomery County Volunteer Center. And again, if anybody wants to reach out to me, feel free to as well. I'll give you my email address in the comments, so you'll have that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Eric.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you both. Amasegenalu.
Amasegenalu.